report says that there's a gash on the patient's neck. It looks like someone slashed her neck.
This harrowing 911 call went through around 3 in the afternoon Thursday. Broward deputies later finding a young woman dead. Family says she was just 23 years old. Friends identify her as Kayla Hodgson, pictured here, a flight attendant and bartender for special events.
Have you ever wondered how far someone might go when consumed by jealousy? In every relationship, there's a hidden layer, a fragile line between devotion, love, and something far more dangerous. In this story, that line shattered completely. This is the story of 23-year-old Kayla Hodgson, who never saw it coming, driven by something far more dangerous than rage. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. This was the terrifying endpoint of an obsession, a relentless pursuit born from jealousy. Her killer, 28-year-old Sakina Thompson, a popular New York nail technician, a woman driven by a rage so cold, she used technology to track her unsuspecting target, all the way from New York down to Florida, then executed a plan that defied belief. All these happened because of a man. What turns ordinary jealousy into deadly obsession? And how did a simple tracking device lead someone to commit such a brutal crime?
Blessings and abundance to you guys. I am Isabel Ricania. I am the cousin of Jolene. Me and my family, we just left from court. I'm just kind of settling down a little bit. But it was a DA reject. They're saying because at the end of the day, both parties had opportunity not to fight each other. And pretty much my cousin shouldn't have pulled over there. To clarify some things, I was not there. My baby cousin is 30 years old. I'm 36. I have a lot of family. I have a lot on my plate. I'm into a lot of different things for the community and a lot of different stuff, right? So I'm just interceding for my family because death is not a stranger to me. I've been singing at funerals from 4th grade. So glory to God, I'm able to have strength in these times for my family. Now, I'm also aware that the young lady who Jolene got into it with, her and some friends before this incident took place went to like the restaurant and was harassing Jolene and provoking her, and it's just been an ongoing thing. And I guess my cousin felt that she had something to prove to these people and, went over there, and this is the outcome of, the situation. Let it be a lesson to all of us. Let it be a lesson to all of us. No matter how hard you are, no matter who, what, we all touchable. None of us is untouchable. We all could die. You know what I'm saying? None of us know our final second, minute, and hour. It's tragic for both families. Unfortunately, it's my family who lost someone. You feel me? And I wish she didn't feel she had to prove nothing to these people.
If an envious woman can't reach you, if she can't intertwine herself with your life through platonic advances, through professional advances, she will successfully intertwine herself in your life through a romantic partner. So as you all know, I posted an analysis recently talking a little bit about Jolene's case. And for those who aren't familiar with that story, I strongly encourage you to go back and watch that analysis. But in the clip that I included at the beginning of this analysis today, it was yet another video of her cousin and them receiving, an update from the DA. So that's district attorney's office. And how the district attorney decided to kind of, close the case as far as, doing further investigation and providing some additional justice for their cousin, because the district attorneys concluded that, both parties had ample opportunity to not fight. Now, I know some people are arguing the fact that, Jolene pulled up to this person's, home or wherever it was and decided to initiate a physical altercation. Now, the purpose of my channel here is to think critically. And I think that video of her cousin where she was describing the sequence, the chain of events, right? And that's what we talk about on this channel, especially when we break down the topic of envy, how envy is typically a byproduct of sequential phases. So the cousin, or Jolene's cousin to be specific, her terminology in regards to her cousin's case is standing out to me so deeply, because I feel like the language that she's using is kind of painting the picture. Now, obviously, I don't know all the details. I'm not familiar with any of these people, but the cousin's language is just kind of sticking out like a sore thumb to me. The first thing that I heard her cousin say that stood out, obviously, and what led to me making a whole analysis about Jolene, was her stating that the other party had a very provoking energy. And then fast forward where the cousin provides a follow-up about the district attorney and things like that. And she painted a picture as far as the sequence between her cousin and this other young woman, and how there were instances where the girl would show up to Jolene's place of work, right? Or not her place of work, excuse me, her place of business. And if you all are familiar with a lot of the analyses that I posted about how important it is to protect your business, because people will use that as a way to gain physical access to you to harm you. I believe that this was also prevalent with Valeria Marquez's case. So when you think about someone who is coming after your business, right? And for a lot of people who they built their stuff from the ground up, they view their business as their baby. So you coming in and you making customers uncomfortable, you causing a scene, it can make someone feel defensive. And also, you knowing that that person understands that they could pull up at your place of business and know where you're at, know your whereabouts. I'm sure that that may have put Jolene into a protective mode. Now, I'm not necessarily in the business of knocking people for how they feel like they need to protect themselves. Instead, I highlight instances of, okay, when someone is trying to provoke you, though, I understand it. You know, and in my Jolene analysis, I stated, I was transparent about the fact I personally come from an environment and a background where being confrontational is a norm. Even if it doesn't lead to a physical altercation per se, being confrontational is relative to being very direct and upfront as far as, I don't like you, I know you don't like me, my people know we don't like you, your people know that you're not supposed to like me. Like, it's very clear, it's very cut and dry. So I completely understand that confrontational nature. However, it takes time for you to understand that there are instances where it's in your best interest to actually pay people dust and to step back, especially when you realize they have a knack for provoking you, because there's typically a trick up their sleeve. So in an instance where Jolene felt like, okay, maybe I need to make my presence known, and it could have also been a situation where this person is trying to be funny. Right? Now, obviously, this is just me being objective here. This is me being neutral and providing different context. Now, Jolene could have had in the back of her mind, if this person wants to be funny and show up to my place of business, you know, to act like they're applying pressure, I'm going to pull up to where they live to let them know that, hey, no one is exempt from being uncomfortable around here. People could argue, well, you were in the wrong, but you have to understand the sequence. If this person was showing up to Jolene's place of business to make her feel uncomfortable, it makes sense that Jolene would feel like, okay, I have to make my presence known as well, and I have to defend myself. So two things can be true at the same time. Yes, ideally not showing up to that person's home so that she wouldn't be attacked. Ideally, yes, we would have loved for that not to happen. But Jolene's thought process is also valid in this case here. Now, another thing that I want to highlight is this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to state this because this is my personal hypothesis. Now, I could be wrong, and you all know I'm open to you guys sharing your additional perspectives as well in the comments. As I stated previously, coming from a quote unquote confrontational background myself, that kind of being a norm in my city, and it's not just limited to like certain neighborhoods. No, it's just, that's the way that, you know, my city operates, right? We just are confrontational. We're more upfront, we're more blunt, we're more direct. Even if it's not in a hostile manner, we don't necessarily sugarcoat things, or we don't have to put on a certain appearance or a facade. That's not necessarily how we operate. So that's a norm for us. However, even experiencing and seeing situations where the confrontation did lead to some kind of conflict, whether it be a physical altercation or a verbal altercation, a verbal disagreement, I will say this. Typically, it just stays at maybe arguing, calling one another out, you know, each other's name. Maybe it led to a physical altercation of slapping someone, you know, throwing hands, so to speak. But for someone to stab an individual to the point of an unaliving, that's a different kind of passion. That's a different kind of resentment. And that's why I can't leave it at just me. This is me being honest about my observation and my hypotheses all the way up until, the age that I am right now. Rarely have I seen a situation, even if people were like, I'm finna pull up on you and I'm finna slap you, right? We're finna throw hands. I haven't seen a situation where someone was like, you know what? I'm finna pull out a weapon and I'm gonna attack you, unless that person presented with a weapon as well. Typically, when someone pulls out a weapon and continuously charges at a person until they are unalived, and that person did not show that they had any weapon whatsoever, there's another motive behind them unaliving that person with the weapon. So I want people to kind of sit with that, especially when we revisit the Jolene case. And I strongly encourage you guys to look at Jolene's cousin's updates and pay attention to her terminology. Pay attention to the picture that she painted as far as the history between the two. And to build upon the point I was just now making about Jolene's unaliving and the person's weapon of choice. When we think about another one, right, it's a clean unaliving. It's just one and done. With this particular weapon, we'll say tool, right? It requires more force. It's repetitive to the point to where a person is unalived. I want us to really put this into context. This is different from someone giving you a poke, for lack of better words, because I want to keep this as G-rated as possible. It's different from a poke of literally getting someone to back up off of you and sending a message like, don't play with me, okay? We're gonna get a little gritty here, because I want us to really sit with this, sit with what happened in Jolene's case. Someone having a weapon on them to protect themselves and using it to get someone up off of them, that's one thing. Is it okay? You know what? I'm not going to get into the logistics of that, because sometimes it is a situation where you're genuinely flight or flight, trying to protect yourself. But in this situation where the two were going back and forth over a relationship because they both dated the same man, and there was, a little bit of tension because of that. And, there was some bickering back and forth. Maybe there was some slapping around, some throwing hands, as I stated before. But someone getting to the point to where they are using this particular weapon to unalive you, they're watching you gasp for air. They're watching the liquid, for lack of better words. They're watching it pour out. I want us to think about the mental state that a person has to be in order for you all having an altercation or a disagreement over a shared partner, in order for it to get to that point. So for individuals who are wondering what I mean by erotic and romantic envy and how it gets to this state, I'm going to read from the excerpt titled Erotic and Romantic Envy in the book Green Eyes. Erotic and romantic envy. Erotic envy is often prevalent in romantic situations, especially when one is presented with a love triangle. One may be in a predicament where they are dealing with a scorned lover, an envious partner of an ex, or a competitive romantic opponent. Under these circumstances, erotic envy should not be taken lightly, as it often results in legal consequences or unaliving. When one is dealing with an envious individual whose envy is romantically motivated, there will often be an obsession with the target. Now, that obsession point from the excerpt is the presentation of the other case that was referenced at the beginning of this analysis, where the other young lady, right, who was competing with this other woman over a man, where she started to become obsessive is she planted a tracking device on her target of envy, to where she knew the person's whereabouts so that she can ambush them, right? Blindside them and attack them to the point of their unaliving. So understanding how erotic and romantic envy can become dangerous as depicted in that excerpt is very important here. Another thing to note is this: when you're dealing with someone, because it could get very wicked. Sometimes you are dealing with a person who is envious of you, and it's actually not even about the relationship. Sometimes the man is the common denominator to get close to you. There are so many instances where young women had no idea they were on another person's radar. This person has known you since grade school, since high school. Maybe you all worked together and they found out who you were dealing with romantically. And if the partner was kind of, open, for lack of better words, or as the people say, if the partner was going, and they started to pursue this person romantically as well, right? Operating from that, space of I can have my cake and eat it too. And I have an analysis where I depicted the movie Boomerang, talking a little bit about that. When you're dealing with someone who is trying to, operate with the romantic roster, how it can put you in harm's way as the person who is positioned on this roster involuntarily. But if the person is trying to, orchestrate this roster, they're not aware of the fact that there are some people on that roster who has an intention to harm another person on your romantic roster. And this is really prevalent. There are certain women, and this can be gender inclusive, but obviously I'm going to speak as a woman myself, but there are certain women who will eye another woman for years and for months. And they will figure out like a point of entry. Okay, I wasn't able to get this person in a platonic manner. They weren't as, open in that arena. Okay, let me try a professional advance. Okay, they weren't as open with that either. But romantically, I don't necessarily need that person to give me a green light. I need their partner to give me a green light. And as the target of envy, you can't control that. You can control who you give access to, but you can't control who the person you're dating gives access to. So this is how a lot of women who are envious of another person, this is how they, establish a point of entry. And this is how they gain intel about their target of envy. So it's a very dangerous game. It's not always the scorned lover, even though that's prevalent, and we'll dissect that shortly here. But it can also be access. It could be about accessing their target of envy by any means necessary, even if it's through getting up under the person that the target of envy is romantically involved with at a given point in time. Now, to elaborate on the scorned lover piece, because this runs rampant in erotic and romantic envy situations and romantic triangles. A scorned lover, a scorned ex, etc. The reason why it typically gets to this point is because the person is operating from a mindset of they lost something. I think that this can be better depicted in a couple of different excerpts in the publications that I talk about on this channel. So the first one is in the book Green Eyes, and that excerpt is titled The Person Who Feels Like That They Lost Their Crown to You. Another excerpt that I would encourage people to read from to gain a better understanding as far as why a scorned lover will feel like they're losing their spot when it comes to, their ex moving on to another person, is in the book In the Lion's Den, Navigating Systems of Power, in the excerpt that talks about how typically it's difficult for a predecessor to gracefully pass their crown or pass their throne down to a successor. Because a lot of the time, people have a difficult time letting go of their positions of power. It comes with a lot of feelings of inadequacy. It typically fuels a lot of jealousy, a lot of envy and competitiveness, even a territorial nature of, no, I got to keep this because I sacrificed so much and I worked so hard to get here. And this can also be in a romantic context as well. So I strongly encourage you guys to go back and read, actually study those excerpts to provide some additional context as to why a scorned lover has such a intense, pursuit of their target of envy when it comes to a romantic triangle and erotic and romantic envy. Now, to further depict the visceral and vicious pursuit of a scorned lover, when we think about, a new addition to the romantic triangle or the person who is the new person of affection, I'm going to read from another excerpt in the book, All Strings Attached, The Queen's Quarrel. One could wonder why her venom is deep for other romantic parties, especially because of her powerful allure being so magnifying and captivating. The answer is rooted in her limitations. This pattern of romantic rejection motivates her to up the ante regarding seduction. This is how she receives the romantic attention and affection she yearns for. Her ability to impede on established relationships is perceived as her asserting her power. So in sum, babes, never underestimate how far a scorned lover will go. All right, babes, that's all that I have for this analysis today. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. But of course, I want to hear you all's comments, opinions, and perspectives, as well as your personal experiences in the comment section below. I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next analysis, babes. Take care.